Mark.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Good afternoon. Hi, folks. Thank you for joining me. I'm the guy in the suit. They have to have one guy in a suit. I'm the quota. Thank you for joining. I want to share a couple things, a couple very simple things about a pretty complex topic. I want to share with you what SAP has done over the past 10 years using gamification in order to grow a very vibrant and engaged and active community of customers and partners. I want to share with you some of the things, the tools, the techniques, and so forth that we've used, and then share with you some of the ways that we've evolved and some of the lessons that we've learned along the way. So, I think everybody knows SAP. You may have a different view of what SAP is than what it actually is. It's a 40-year-old business software company. You may have a picture of us as an old ERP company, but actually we're very engaged in mobile and cloud, databases, big data, analytics, and a whole bunch of other topics that are much more current, much more hip than ERP or enterprise resource planning. SAP is very global, so that's a challenge for us as we build out a global community and engage with our global audience of customers and partners and prospects and influencers and others. So that presents some special challenges for us. The way that we go about this within SAP, within my organization, I'll just give you a sense of the organization because maybe you'll appreciate why these things go together. My organization at SAP is called DISCO for short. It stands for Digital, Social, and Communities. Digital is sap.com and 70 country websites in 40 languages, serving our customers and others all around the world. So big global footprint. We drive lots of traffic, of course, and we serve lots of those fiduciary responsibilities that a corporate website has to do, like recruiting and training and posting our financial results like we will announce tomorrow for the first quarter, and doing all those kind of fiduciary responsibilities. But the core responsibility of sap.com, our core corporate website, is to drive sales leads. And we drove about 500,000 sales leads to our sales force last year. So that's the core of what digital does, digital marketing. Social media, of course, you know. It involves our activity, our engagement on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, et cetera, and SAP as a company has more than 200 social media accounts. So SAP Mobile, SAP Cloud, SAP North America, and on and on and on. Lots and lots of accounts, and we're essentially governing how many accounts, which accounts, how to engage in those accounts to be most effective, and so forth. And then the final piece, the third leg on the stool, is our online community. We have an online community called the SAP Community Network. Very clever name. This online community has existed for about 10 years. It's lots and lots of customers, partners, prospects, and it started out as a development community. So you can imagine developer networks, MSDN, the Java community, et cetera. It started out in that way, and it's grown to be a business community as well. Attached to our online community are physical events. We have an event series called SAP Tech Ed, Technical Education. This year we'll meet about 25 or 35,000 customers and partners and others in 4 locations around the world, in Vegas and Amsterdam and Bangalore and Shanghai. And that really connects the community members to themselves in a much more a stronger bond, as opposed to the loose ties that many of us see in online communities. So that's where these things come together. Now, I mentioned it's pretty big. We talk about 1.5 million to 2 million unique visitors a month on this online community, about 5,000 posts every single day, 25 to 50 blogs every single day, really by any member of the community. So any one of the 2+ million members of the community can post anything at any time. We, of course, have rules around that. But it really drives a lot of activity and engagement and participation, and it's really a customer-led community. There's a small team that manages this community. You can imagine it's like a tiny little speck when you think about 2 million members. And actually we have the unofficial number is 3.3 million user profiles or member profiles in this community, but we know that there are some duplicates and there's some dormant accounts and so on and so forth. So we're conservative and we say it's over 2 million who are active members. So it's also very broad. A lot of SAP products and technologies and solutions and processes and practices that are covered in this community. And the idea behind this community was make a place for customers to help each other to be successful with this pretty complex software that runs some of the largest businesses on the planet. So you can imagine that this business software that's underpinning, Daimler Chrysler or Home Depot or Walmart or the iTunes store, this is pretty complex stuff, and so customers help each other just as much as our own SAP support people are helping those customers to be successful. So we use gamification as a way to encourage that participation. We use gamification to encourage customers to answer each other's questions, to point each other to documentation, to share best practices, to share their horrible experience in trying to do an implementation and how they overcame it, to share the business processes that they've used that they believe to be best practices or to be earth-shattering or something new that should be shared with others. So the whole idea of gamification for us has really been get people to engage, answer each other's questions, participate with each other, and not have this be a static website where we're publishing content and people are reading it. That would be the death of a community, not a real community. So you can see that 10 years ago, we started with humble beginnings, with one first member. And right from the very beginning, we had discussion forums, which were, I'm going to ask some questions and hope some other people are going to answer those questions. We use gamification points as ways to encourage that kind of contribution. And from the very beginning, we put the power into the hands of the community member who asked the question to decide who gets points for answering these questions and how many points do they get within some parameters so that they could be the determiners, the arbiters of quality content. That's the second thing that we were looking for was quality, because we don't want just lots of people talking about stuff. We want people to be helping each other and pointing them to the really good content and the good quality and the good documentation, et cetera, that would help other community members to be successful. So points were introduced as a way to encourage that contribution. The points, of course, aggregate up into levels. For levels, we used to give T-shirts. We used to give physical, goods as a symbol of your achievement. But then we realized we were in the T-shirt production and distribution business, especially for a global company. It became a very large budget, like $100,000, $200,000 a year in simply T-shirts. So we asked our community, what do we do about it? And they came back with a number of answers, and finally the community itself settled on, let's do something collectively with United Nations. Let's feed hungry children, and let's not make it just a sort of peanut butter spread, but let's target this. So we targeted three countries around the world where children would get fed when they went to school based on the number of points that our community in the aggregate produced. Meaning, how many questions did they answer, how many blogs did they publish, how many wiki comments did they make, how many times did they present at events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And any time they shared information with other community members, they got points. At a certain point level for the community, we gave 100,000 euros to the UN World Food Program with the idea that if kids are forced or encouraged to go to school in order to get that free lunch, then perhaps the next generation will do better. They'll be able to sustain themselves and help their families over time. It was a great hit with the community, and we said, okay, we'll double that contribution to the UN if you reach this next level of points. And around October, I published a blog in the community and said, we're not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to spend this extra 100,000 euros on these kids who desperately need it. And the community members jumped in and really participated and made sure that they blogged, contributed to wikis, answered each other's questions, so on and so forth. Now, we've gamified our events, too. As recently as 2 years ago, we had Jane McGonigal, who's a gamification leader, leading voice, come and speak at one of our events as a keynote speaker to introduce the concept. We then used game mechanics and game techniques in order to get the people who were physically at that event to engage with each other, to meet other people, to spur conversation, and also to engage with the content that was being discussed on the stages or in the sessions during this event with about 5,000 or 7,000 people in Las Vegas. Turned out to be a great event and a great way to encourage people to engage and to participate with each other. Now, you can imagine that way back in 2003 when we started, it was pretty rudimentary stuff. It was, you get points, you get levels, you'll get a T-shirt at some point, you'll get recognition and so forth. We've become more sophisticated, and within the next few days, we're about to release our next version of gamification. I don't think I would call it version 2.0, it's probably 3 or 5.0, because we've gone through so many iterations over the past 10 years. but we're about to release the next one on this very broad community. Now, just to give you a sense of it, the community runs on the Jive platform. We recently migrated there about a year ago. And our gamification plugin platform provider is Bunchball. So we're using Jive and Bunchball together in order to do the next generation of gamification on the SAP Community Network. And we expect great results as a consequence. Now, why did we do this? I think I talked a little bit about why we did gamification. It was to encourage contributions, encourage members to participate with each other, encourage the sharing of information, to identify high-quality content and to reward quality over quantity. And also, we got a couple other benefits out of this. Number one, we could identify the individuals who were the top contributors who were most engaged in our community. That's hard to do when you have a community of 1 million or 2 million or 3 million individuals. It's hard to pick out who are the bright shining stars who are really driving the activity. The 1-9-90 rule still exists, where 1% of our community members are really driving the next 9% of the community members, and 90% are pretty passive consumers of content. We wanted to really identify who are the 9 and who are the 1%, so that we can really focus on that 1% or even the 1/100th of 1% and encourage them further, because they're really providing the momentum for this entire massive global community of 2 million people. We also can aggregate those individuals together and say, gosh, there's a whole bunch of them from IBM Global Services, or from TCS, one of our big service providers, or from Harley-Davidson, one of our customers. We can see where the aggregate activity is coming from, and we can recognize the companies as well, in particular our partners, who are really helping to drive activity and engagement and value into this community. Now, way back when, and even currently, we've done a number of the things that you would expect in gamification within the SAP Community Network. We had points that accumulated up to levels, which accumulated up to badges. Those badges are displayed on everybody's profile, so if I get an answer to one of my questions in one of these discussion areas, I can immediately see whether this person is credible or less credible, based on, do they have a badge at all? Are they a bronze, a silver, a gold, a platinum member? If they're platinum, then I can be pretty well assured that the quality that I get to judge, the quality is probably going to be pretty spot on. If they don't have any points, if this is the first time they've ever done anything, they have no badge, they have no sort of status in the community, then I'm going to look a couple extra times to make sure that what they're sharing with me really is on target. We've also started to do something called Member of the Month. And Member of the Month is kind of pulling diamonds in the rough out of the community who might otherwise be ignored. And really, one of our team members, Laura, who's here with us today, Laura does a very extensive interview with them, gets to know, where did you go to school? How'd you get in this line of business? Why are you engaging? What first got you started with the community? Why are you engaged with SAP? What does your customer do, or what does your company do with it, et cetera, et cetera. And we really get to know these people very intimately and start to know one person at a time, and these people get lots of recognition. We recognize people on stage at the big events. I mentioned we do some big ones. So in Las Vegas this year, we'll have about 7,000 people at our Tech Ed event. We'll bring the top contributors on different categories, and we have 400 different categories. So we'll bring top contributors on different categories up onto stage so that they can be recognized by their peers and thanked for paying it forward, for sharing, for being altruistic and helping other community members to be successful with their SAP products and technologies and solutions and implementations and so forth. They get that public recognition, which is really important. And we also pull their content up to the top. So everybody wants to be on a home page. We have lots and lots of home pages because we have lots and lots of topics. We can pull top contributing members' content up to the top. That gets them more visibility, gets them more readership, gets them more comments, and that's really rewarding for somebody who's putting forth their own time and energy in order to publish a blog or to share a comment or to share some insight with other community members. So all that stuff is very valuable to our community members. So along our journey, we did face some challenges. I'll give you 3 of them just as an example. Number one, our visitors weren't as engaged. Number one, after 10 years, you've pretty much answered every question there is out there until we introduce the next product and there are new questions. But what we found was there was lots of consumption of content, but people weren't going to the extra step to simply log in and comment or rate or share other people's content. They'd search, they'd find the answer, and they'd disappear. We wanted to encourage more logging in and engaging even if it's simply to say thank you for sharing that, that was helpful, to that person who has spent their time and energy to produce something. The other was our members got overly focused on points. They got a little over-enthusiastic. We perhaps over-marketed to them. And they got a little excited about, I want to be the leader in my category. And so we needed to defocus them from the points alone and really on the mission, which is sharing and helping each other through quality content. So we needed to defocus them a little bit from the points, and they would actually cheat to get points. I'll ask a bunch of questions, you answer them, I'll give you points for that, then let's reverse it, and I'll get a bunch of points. Voila, we're all platinum members. We didn't want to do that. That's not the point of this whole exercise. So we've undertaken to broaden out what we're doing with our points and our gamification platform and also our gamification program. You can see what some of those opportunities are. And the desired outcome that we're looking for really is we want this to be a really engaging and engaged community. We don't want people just to come in, read content, and go. That's a website. That's not a community. We want people to log in. We want them to participate. We want them even just simply to comment or to show their appreciation to other community members. We don't want just quantity of contributions. We don't just want lots of blogs or lots of discussion posts or lots of sharing of a wiki. We want quantity, or we want quality. Our customers are in business, and they just don't want goofing around or this sort of gamesmanship. They want real value to come out of it, and so do we, of course. And we want better reputation information, not just what is the subject that you're an expert in and so on and so forth, but we really want higher quality. So, as a consequence, what have we done? We've improved the badges. We've gone from gold, silver, platinum to 20 different badges based on 20 different missions and things that you can earn. So it's not simply how much content did you share and how have you moved up. We've also gone to 10 different levels. So instead of 4 levels, we now have 10. So it's a little bit more granular as you work your way forward. And finally, your reputation is much richer, much richer. So we don't want simply the name, rank, and serial number kind of information. We want to know what did you share, where did you share it, when did you share it, in response to what was the thing that spurred you on, what about your background, what things have you done in the past. We really want to know these individuals because we do get to know, surprisingly, with a 2 million member global community, we really do get to know individuals very well. There's probably 200 or 300 people that we know pretty intimately, that we know about their families and their hobbies and their likes and dislikes and so on. So the missions fall into 4 major categories. One is we want to get them exploring. If you're a brand new member, this is a big, daunting task to go into a community of 2 million. Let's get you exploring and moving around and poking around in the different content so that you can discover what's available. Next, we want you to engage by sharing your appreciation with others. Comment on somebody's blog, like something, share it. Then we want you to create something. We want you to create your own blog and start sharing your perspective and your experiences with others. And finally, we want you to be able to influence the opinions and the behaviors and the actions of others. So those are, in broad strokes, what we're trying to move people along. Now, there's some other things that we're doing as well, and I would say that the ultimate, I might characterize it as sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're trying to get people to self-actualize their online experience. We're trying to get them not just fulfilling their basic needs for information or a solution or advice, but move them up that pyramid, that Maslow's hierarchy. Another way to think about it would be sort of the evolution of man, right? We want them to be fully developed, not just sort of a person that jumps in, asks a question, or answers a question and jumps out, or searches for information here. We want you to really fully develop as a community member who's really tightly bonded with us as a company and with other community members as well. And so the way that we characterize this is really a stair step. We want to step them from very basic things up through a process where they will become self-actualized, or they will become a full and complete participant and member of the community and really feel like this is their community that they can engage in and they can help to steer. So, with that, I will close with some key learnings. Some of the things that we've learned as we've gone along the way. Number one, of course, focus on your audience, what they like, what they're missing, what they need, what little piece of value that you could offer them to help them to be successful. That's really the starting point for anything. The other is, of course, that has to fit with your company's business goals, or you're not going to get funded, you're not going to get supported, your CEO is going to shut it down, and it's going to be a waste of time. You need to tie whatever it is that you're offering to your customers, your partners, your sales force, whoever you're gamifying, you need to tie that to your business goals. Third, we involve our community members in the process. We have something called design thinking. One of the founders of SAP sponsors something at Stanford University called the Design School, or the D School. And design thinking is essentially go out and ask your customers what they want, iterate with them, help them to determine the solution. That's what we do as we build our community and we build our gamification project and model. Another thing that we found really helpful, we've got a distributed team. I mentioned that we're a global company. Our IT folks are mostly in Germany, north and south. We've got a bunch of key people here in the Silicon Valley. We've got some people on the East Coast in Philadelphia. We realized, gosh, we've got to get them in a physical space. So we put people together for a week so that they could really work together in the same time and same space. That was really critical for a global company. We are also changing the status quo. We're changing the way it has always been done as we go along. And really, with this next version of gamification that's going to launch in our community over the next week or so, we're really changing the status quo. It's going to be a big change for our community members. We've got to do a lot of communication in order to make it successful, a lot of pre-selling of the concepts to them and engaging of them in the process. But we are changing the way it's always been done, and as we've done several times in smaller increments along the way. And finally, we want to make it fun. We have fun stuff that goes on in our community. We have some events where we get the geeks together with the suits, and at one of the events we had something called Suit Hugger was the hashtag, which was don't be frightened of those people in the cargo shorts, or don't be frightened of those people in the suits and ties. Introduce yourself. They're not frightening. They're people. They're customers and partners and so on as well. Get a picture and post it on our site. We have somebody who's raising money for a good cause. We have an event in about a month, and some of the silly ways that she's raising a good cause from members of the community are just playful. So even though we're in serious business, we're in business to make money, we're in business to serve our customers, there can be a playfulness about the way that we go about it, and we inject that into our community at every turn, including through our gamification. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and I want to wish you good luck. Game on. Enjoy.